Good evening, friends. Welcome to the first agriculture policy discussion series. As you know, I have been hosting a series of talks under Mapping Sustainable Agriculture series of lectures where we used to invite one person, one expert, who used to speak for about half an hour, 35 minutes, and then we had discussion. So my colleague and friend, Mr. Pravesh Sharma, has suggested that we should organize some discussions on certain topics of agriculture which are of contemporary relevance. So this is the first event of the new series, which is called Agriculture Policy Series. And I'm really thankful to all the participants who have joined online. And sir, this is the first time that so many former secretaries to Government of India have come. So we have the Secretary Telecom, we have Secretary Food, we have Secretary Food, Secretary Agriculture, Chairman NDDB, and of course we have this very eminent panel. And of course Anuradha was Secretary North Interstate Council, and her husband is a very well-known expert on transfer pricing. Of course, no one in this room uh, needs his services, but he is very much an expert on that. Harveer bhai, thank you so much for coming, and Dr. Sharma from IAFT. So it is really a very heavy panel, and we have friends. You may not have met them. Pravesh there. He was Director General of Statistics in the Government of India. They have been coming for many lectures. I'm sorry, I'm not introducing everyone. Dr. Gopalan, former Secretary DA. So thank you very much. I hand over to Pravesh, who will introduce the subject, and then he will organize the discussion. I think we will spend about 1 hour in discussion, and then maybe another 30, 40 minutes in an open discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I add my words of welcome to this distinguished panel and the audience, both present here, and we have a very large online presence today. The idea behind this series basically came out of a discussion that Siraj Saab and I had, where we felt that agriculture, which had traditionally been the site of some big policy ideas, right from the abolition of zamindari, to the green revolution, to the milk revolution, to the fisheries revolution. But perhaps, maybe if you look at the last 20-year period, there has been a drought of big ideas in agriculture. So we thought it would be a good idea to use this public platform to ideate and to discuss what could be the next set of big ideas in agriculture. This is actually a series. And for the first of these discussions, we chose deliberately the theme of MSP, which has been very topical. It was a subject of much agitation on the streets. It continues to be a subject which engages both the farming community, experts, government, and of course, I would say that it actually is the only thing which concerns people at large, though they may not feel directly connected to it. The idea was to bring together a group of, I think, people with deep domain knowledge, and they will share their thoughts, and they will perhaps be the best people to either argue for or against the idea of a legal guarantee of an MSP as perhaps the next breakthrough idea in agriculture. Will this be the silver bullet that we have been missing for the last 20 years? I don't think that I need to talk about this any further, but I believe that this discussion will be highly enriched, not just because of what the panel is going to say, but also because of this very distinguished presence in the audience. And also, we try to reach out to a large number of young people, students in various academies and institutions, because I believe that engaging them is very important if we are going to see any breakthrough in some of these areas in the next 20, 30 years. So I'm going to invite Harish Damodaran. Everyone knows him. He's the rural affairs editor at the Indian Express. He's been writing on this theme. And I'm going to request him to speak for about 12, 13 minutes. Then maybe Okay. You have a 15-minute slot, but I hope that maybe we can throw a couple of follow-up questions. So we'll go around the table with the 4 speakers, and then it will be an open house. Please feel free to comment or question any of the speakers. So Harish, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Siraj sir. Yeah, I think the topic was whether we should have an MSP guarantee, to farmers, whether legal or otherwise, for the crops that they are producing. According to me, about 15 to 20 years from now, I don't think we'll be having this debate at all. Okay, the reason is very simple. Agriculture is, I think, seeing a hemorrhaging, of both the best lands and the best human resources. Okay, you just look around you. I mean, the most fertile riverine plains, between the even between the Yamuna and the Ganga, jo Doab jo bolte hain, and you see, I mean, all these are getting converted, from farmlands to real estate, if not expressways and townships. I mean, you start with, I mean, Noida वगैरह छोड़िए, I mean, Gautam Budh Nagar, Bulandshahr, I mean, Ghaziabad, these are all gone already. Then you look at Hapur, Meerut, Bagpat, Shamli, Muzaffarnagar, Saharanpur. Then वहाँ से the other side, Bijnor, Amroha, Moradabad, Sambhal. All these lands are slowly, these are all getting more and more urbanized. Okay, and same thing you take when you go, you go the same, the fields, along or near the GT Karnal highway, everywhere. I think farmers are just waiting for an opportune time to sell. They are farmers, but उनका ध्यान और कहीं पे है, ठीक है? And we even in Andhra, you look at now Amravati, the capital city of Andhra Pradesh. It is coming up, bang in the Krishna Delta, on the right bank of the Krishna River, and Vijayawada is on the other side. I've seen my own state, Kerala, which used to have lush paddy fields at one time, and turning into a concrete jungle. Okay. Many people say Kerala is having floods because of climate change and all, whereas I think it has to do with the disappearance of paddy fields, which is neither allowing recharge of groundwater nor discharge of rainwater. I've seen in my own village, which is now a municipality, Vadakanjeri. Okay, there are no paddy fields left. Okay, so we are staring at an ecological disaster because farms are not just producing crops, they are also a sink for carbon. Okay, they also recharge water. You can't recharge water on your roads and expressways and all, right? Recharge to sirf field mein hota hai. So in paddy land, so when these disappear, okay, so one is the best lands going away. Okay, and if you see, actually today most of your agriculture is happening today on semi-arid lands, not as fertile as whatever, the Krishna Godavari Delta, the Kaveri Delta, or the Dwabs. It is happening in places like, say, Kolar, Lasalgaon, Mandsaur, Jalgaon, and farmers there are the ones, they are producing our, tomato, onion, garlic, banana, etc. And wahan pe the production has been happening because you had new technologies which started coming in. You had drip irrigation, you had tissue culture, high density plantation in banana. You had hybrids in vegetables, maize, even fodder grasses. And plus you had other technologies like laser land leveling, BT cotton, so much of these things. And all these technologies came, in the 90s and 2000s. Whereas if you see last one decade, there's been no new technology. कोई नया technology आया नहीं है. See, digital वगैरह सही है. I mean, ठीक है. Digital, GPS, drones, sensors, cloud computing, all these are fine. But at the end of the day, crops can only be produced on physical fields by real farmers. है ना? ये तो virtually तो production तो नहीं हो पाएगा. So I think we should we should look beyond today and just ask ourselves a very simple question. If our best agricultural lands are disappearing and farmers are looking at exit options, at least definitely for their children, if not for themselves, who's going to produce our food, say 20 years, 25 years from now? Okay, and where we may have, I think, maybe 1.7 billion mouths to feed. Okay, the government data says that we have too many farmers. And I think in the last agriculture census they said 150 million operational holdings. ये PM Kisan में बोलते हैं कि about I think 11.5 crore farmers. Whereas I can tell you the actual people doing farming may not be more than 4 crore, 40 to 50 million this thing. And even these numbers, I can guarantee you, will come down if we continue in this particular in the current way. And where there is also so farmers face two kinds of uncertainties. Okay, no other business faces. There is uncertainty of both price as well as production. Production right from the beginning, at the time of sowing, barish nahi hoga. Vegetative growth, then you have pests and diseases, okay, at the time of harvesting, so that your temperatures can go up. So in this kind of, I can tell you, no businessman will do businessman if there are both production and price uncertainties. Okay, koi nahi karega. Okay, so we should look at farmer as a businessman, okay, business person, business woman. Okay, and I really don't see an alternative to MSP to retain our best human resources in the countryside and doing farming. Okay, we are not doing them, but ourselves a favor. So I think we should not look at what is the situation today. Many of us, I think, even as a reporter, I am only looking at what is the next crop. RBI is only looking at inflation, in the next quarter. Okay, but we need to really look at 25 years from now, 30 years from now, who will farm? Why will anybody farm? Right? So I think there is no alternative to MSP. I'll say that abhi ye jo PM Kisan, scrap it. It's a useless scheme. We should learn to separate welfareism from agriculture. Okay, we should have welfare scheme. You give money to people, have it as a thing, but that cannot be agriculture policy. Agriculture policy means treating agriculture as a business where the producers have incentive and interest to produce. Okay, so this welfareism should go away. We should look at it, and I don't believe in per acre payments, per hectare payments, all farmers, whatever they produce, getting the same this thing. No, MSP is the only way, because it rewards the producer for producing more. Okay, so you can have an MSP policy which is very conditional. That is, with MSP, I can ensure that if we want farmers to produce millets, you pay the MSP. If you want farmers to produce more pulses, you pay the MSP. It can be conditional upon farmers producing certain crops, etc. And once you give this guarantee, I can tell you, and also make and also have a land use policy that is banning the use of agricultural lands for other purposes. I think this is precisely the time for India to plan for 20 years, 30 years from now. Okay. Right now, we don't have a plan for agriculture. We don't know what is going to be the demand for milk, what is the demand for pulses, what is the demand for edible oils. हमें पता नहीं है. We don't know. Okay. People say कि हमें जो है हमारा production, milk production 600 million ton होगा in 2030. Where are the animals? Where is the land? Where is the land where you can grow fodder? If you grow fodder, at what other crops expense will it be? Okay, so there is a lot of planning to be done for agriculture. I mean, see, I don't care whether India becomes self-sufficient in electrical vehicles or in semiconductors, whether we should have semiconductor foundries and all these things. Kuch nahi hoga. But a country of 1.7 billion has to feed itself. We cannot rely on imports. Okay, beyond the point. Okay, maybe ये edible oil में ये हो सकता है, whatever, 60% you can import, but that itself we have seen what happened after the Ukraine war. or tomorrow, say, Indonesia just decides to, ban export of palm oil. Okay, so a country like India cannot afford to, be very casual about agriculture. Okay, so MSP, I think, is the minimum, is not just minimum support price, it's the minimum that we can do to the farmer. Okay, to ensure that the farmer remains in business. Okay, and we can probably learn lessons from the US. US just has, I think the last census showed 1.89 million farmers. Okay, but they'll do anything to ensure that those farmers continue to farm. Okay, remain in business. तो मुझे लग रहा है कि यही आने वाला है, आने वाले दिन में हमारे जो है, we will struggle to feed our people. Okay, and incomes will grow. सभी को चाहिए, fast food चाहिए, everybody wants, vegetables चाहिए, fish चाहिए, chicken चाहिए, but somebody has to produce, right? If these people don't produce, so I think the time has come for enlightened self-interest, and figure out how to pay, and let us drop all these options of, payment, whatever, per farmer, 6,000 रुपया पकड़ा दो. ये क्या है? I mean, every farmer 6,000 rupees. Why should a serious farmer be bothered about 6,000 rupees? See, you convert that into welfare payment. Na? It's okay. I mean, you have a general welfare program, whatever, targeting poor, vulnerable people. But I think farmers are farmers. Farmers are producers first, and we have to treat them as producers, and they are producing for us, and they will continue to produce 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and I hope India doesn't become Kerala. Thank you.
So Harish very passionately argued, but since you have another 2 minutes, and I'm not going to let you off the hook before that. So like a good reporter, you told us a great story, but you missed the essential question which I had to begin with. Should this MSP, you argued in favor of it, should it be a legal guarantee where, like Manrega, or like, shall we say, the right to education, should it be legalized, legislated into law?
I think that's something which lawyers can answer better than me. I don't know about legal rights. I only know that the farmers, we better give them. See, like right now we are seeing in soybean, prices have crashed. It is now fallen below MSP. Okay, 4,300, and now the crop is not even started to come. So I'm only interested that the farmer gets the MSP, So I don't know whether legal, whatever, by force, I don't know. But my thing is the farmer should get it. I mean, if it can be legally enforced, yes, you do it. And how you do it, whether it is going to be, price deficiency payment, whether it is government procuring and this thing. I think there is no, I mean, I'll tell you, as I said, I think 15, 20 years from now, we won't be having a debate, because I'm telling you, this is slow bleeding which is taking place, which we are not realizing. Land is slowly disappearing. Farmers are all I mean, see, like farmers also, it is human resources, right? I mean, if we lose those best farmers, to coming and doing other things, I mean, I think we need to think on those lines. Agriculture is a strategic sector for me. It is as important as defense, more important than defense. So will we talk like this about defense? We won't. So let's talk about agriculture also in the same way, and how do we retain the farmers in the countryside? Farmers, their children, their grandchildren. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So I'm going to cue in Professor Himanshu now, because he's been a person who's written extensively, spoken at various public fora, and he brings a lot of academic rigor to this whole argument. So I'll request his views on the subject.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both of you for initiating this series. And before I begin, I must say that this is slightly embarrassing to be sitting here on this panel because of one mistake. There is no woman on this panel. So next time when you do this, make sure that there is at least one woman on the
Can I just
panel.
put my hand up and say that we had invited Kavita ji from ASHA. Because she was busy and couldn't come, she has nominated Kiran.
Then you should have tried harder. That's the answer.
I note your point, and we'll
Yeah,
make
so
amends next time.
otherwise it is it really looks bad in the sense, in this. No, I mean, obviously we need that. So just, I think that's something which is important, because also there are a large number of women farmers. And that's beside the point. I think let me begin by clarifying certain myths about the MSP, and I think to set the terms of the debate in a sense. And a little bit of explanation will go into this when defining what an MSP is. And the major misconception that everybody has is that the MSP is the only price instrument that a government has, which is actually true. I mean, right now the government is using only one price instrument, which is the MSP. It is also the procurement price. It is also your incentive price. It is also whatever you want to call it. But that's not what an MSP is. MSP, strictly as a definition, is a price which is different from procurement price. And a government should have multiple instruments. It's like asking RBI that instead of having repo rate and all sorts of other things, you just have only one instrument. It's impossible, simply because different kind of problems require different kind of instruments. And a government should have multiple instruments to use. The MSP, if you look at it from that point of view, is actually a price to be used only in cases, and that is why it is called minimum support price, and it is a support price. It is not the price that you every time go and use it. It's a kind of an insurance. It's a kind of a buffer that you're providing, and this is the minimum that the government should do to the farmers of this country, which is saying that if the prices go below this, then the government will intervene and will basically raise the prices. Now, this is something which is like, you had COVID, government had to intervene. Did the government raise its hand and say that, look, this is not my job, I'm not going to give you vaccines, I'm not going to do that? This is a part of a democratic society. If there is a crisis that emerges because prices have collapsed in agricultural sector, the government has to intervene. The MSP is supposed to be that price. So that's something which has to be kept in mind. That's very different, and it can actually serve multiple purposes. Incentive price is a different one. You can have an incentive price which basically incentivizes certain crops. You want for crop diversification in certain areas, you incentivize some other crops, give a higher prices to those, but that's not MSP. MSP is strictly an instrument to protect the farmers from the uncertainties of price. Once you agree to that situation, then use it like a MSP. That is, don't every time go and use it as a procurement price. Number two, the MSP, in a sense, does not mean that the government has to buy 100% of the produce. Absolutely no. It basically means that the government will not buy anything if the market prices are higher than the MSP, which is what is common. No farmer is going to sell you if the prices are higher than the MSP that the government has announced. So it basically can also lead to zero procurement, by the zero intervention by the state. But it also fundamentally correct position, because that is where the government is not intervening in the natural play of demand and supply in fixing markets. It is only intervening when it is basically falling below a certain level, which is like protecting the farmers. Third one is a question of should be a legal guarantee or not. And that is something which I have not been able to understand. That if you are basically putting out a gazette notification, you are basically saying that this is supposed to be a minimum support price, which basically means that you will intervene when the prices are going to go below that particular number. And if you do not intervene, then what is the point of bringing out that notification? Don't bring out that notification. And if somebody is holding you accountable for what you have brought out, then what is wrong with that? Governments are meant to be held accountable for whatever they are promising. And if the government is basically saying that this is the minimum support price, and if the market prices are lower than that, then please intervene. The legal guarantee, in my understanding, would basically mean is forcing the government to basically say that yes, now the market prices are lower than your announced MSP. You now intervene in the market, take a little bit of the supply which is available in the market, raise the market prices. The moment the market prices go up, you withdraw. It has to be a dynamic policy in that sense. In a simple way, I don't see any problem with this kind of an arrangement. Anything else that is being talked about can be over and above this. It cannot be a substitution for this policy. America has this policy. It's not that the richer countries do not intervene when their farmers, the prices basically collapse. Donald Trump used it, and he used it multiple number of times when the prices collapsed. He did it during the COVID time. He did it before the COVID time. Actually, he was the president with the maximum number of times that were used this mechanism to protect their farmers. Europe does it. European farmers are protected, and any government should do it. This is something which is what should be the role of the government in basically leaving the market forces to play, let the demand and supply be determined, but you intervene in encouraging good, what we call as the merit goods. If you want some kind of a diversification to happen in terms of a good quality of, a particular crop that you want to be cultivated, incentivize it. If you don't want that particular crop to be, don't do that. But having a minimum support prices is something which is essential. The question that comes is, and which is the question which is not defined clearly in literature as well as in practice, is that is the minimum support price or the MSP also the remunerative price? That's where the question gets stuck. The MSP in that sense technically doesn't have to be a price which is supposed to be decided on the basis of cost. It is a price which can be actually be flexible. You can actually have it more than that, you can have it less than that. How do you decide is something which is a question that where government can have a flexibility, but you have to keep in mind that the question that Harish was raising, the vulnerability of the Indian farmers, it at least has to have some level of element of remuneration built in, with respectability that is built in as far as the prices are concerned. So I think once you understand this, then half your problems are taken care of, in the sense it's not going to cost billions. It is not going to cost some 1 lakh crore or 10 lakh crore or 20 lakh crore. It will depend. If the market prices are good enough, stay back, enjoy, let the farmers have a good prices. But that also doesn't, but what is currently happening is market prices are going up, government goes and bans. Stock limits are imposed, tariffs are imposed, you cannot do this, you have to report your stocks every week, every day, every month, the same thing that happened in demonetization. Every day the policy was basically changing. You suddenly get into a frenzy and you start basically looking at the farmers as if they are making so much of money, we should penalize them. So export ban laga do, ye kar do, export prices, minimum export prices, and all sorts of things. The MSP should actually be only to that extent, of when the prices go, not intervention when the prices are there. Number two is again a question where the prices, particularly fixation of prices, we used to have a system which is what is called the issue price. Currently it is the issue price is 0, for the PDS. But one problem that has been created by the system itself is that today's MSP, the way we look at it, is actually not even an MSP. It is actually an instrument to support the NFSA. It has become an ancillary part of the National Food Security Act. So your entire focus on MSP is nothing to do with the crops. You are doing it because you have to fulfill your mandate for National Food Security Act. That is why you're only buying rice and wheat. You're not bothered about any other crop. You're not willing to expand it to any other crop. And so therefore, that is the instrument which is driving all your policy choices. And that is again a wrong thing. That's something which is a bad thing. That is where the problem with the MSP comes in, that it has actually become a PDS price where the government is basically looking at those calculations. So again, if you keep those things out of the picture and if you do not look at it and keep that as a separate one, that's something which is the government should be doing it for a separate purpose. And the last thing I said that, all of this requires a huge amount of investment from the government in running the entire operation, the minimum support prices operation, which currently is very much concentrated in some states, whereas other states are actually part of the entire. I mean, for example, the procurement in Bihar, procurement in eastern part of the country is almost negligible. I mean, Bihar had a procurement of 50,000, 5 lakh, 1 lakh tons. I mean, look at that example. I mean, whereas it is one of the states with the highest amount of consumption of that particular commodity, but you don't procure from there. You go and procure from somewhere else because again there are very distorted kind of systems which are working. So again, the system has to work. Then it has to be a universal kind of a system. Universal, I mean by 3 important components. It should be applicable to a large majority of the crops which are grown by particularly the small and vulnerable farmers. Number 2, and so it should not be PDS determined one. Number 2, it should be geographically universal, in the sense it should be available to each and every farmer in each and every state. It cannot be simply be an instrument to supporting the one. And the third one is actually where the universal part of the entire exercise comes in, that it cannot be an instrument or the sole instrument in that sense of basically serving multiple purposes in that sense. So it's not going to be a one single instrument based on which you try and answer all sorts of questions, but it should be something which should actually factor in various kind of your cost, remuneration, and other things, factors that you're talking about. But that's something which is a very complicated exercise to deal with. But I think it is important for a better MSP to be designed. The problem today is not, the question actually is not whether MSP should be legal or not. The question is actually, can there be a better way of running the MSP operations or not? That is the real question that should be asked, and that is what the panel discussion should be talking about, not whether MSP is required or not. Everything else becomes secondary. I mean, that's something which should be there. I mean, you want to give cash transfer, that is your job. You want to give something else, that is up to you. But essential part of this is that your price policy is completely wrong. There is absolutely no discussion on the price policy in this country. There is absolutely no understanding of what price policy should be. What are the different instruments that are available? And in what ways can the instruments actually come together and define what can be done? And the last one, some of it will require money. Money not for procurement. Money not for procurement. Money will be required to create investments for infrastructure to make sure that this policy is actually applicable to everybody, available to every farmer, and that investment is necessary, irrespective of whether you have a legal guarantee or not a legal guarantee, or you want to have it just I mean, if the government was actually doing its job, this whole question of legal guarantee wouldn't have a reason. It is arising simply because the government is actually promising something and not delivering. So I think I'll stop here, but I think the questions have to be reframed. And somehow this, my idea is to basically throw open those questions and then have the discussion on those issues rather than whether we should have an MSP as a legal instrument or not.
Thank you. Just one quick follow-up, and you are the best person to perhaps speak on this. The history of MSP, as you know, its origins lie in the whole ecosystem created to support the green revolution, interventions, and it acted as a great comfort or price signal to farmers to, take those new unfamiliar technologies. There is an argument articulated in the, press, in the commentariat, that having achieved food self-sufficiency, and in fact surpluses, which in often cases are difficult to manage, the role of MSP itself is over. How do you react to that?
I mean, first of all, this is a myth that we have become self-sufficient in all crops. We are still importing a large amount of pulses and edible oil, and it's a shame. We should not be doing it. It is happening because of a very, very flawed policy which incentivizes rice and wheat over other crops. You can have an incentive price which basically gives a higher MSP for these crops. You can actually have more production of those crops. Who is stopping you from doing that? But you're happy importing at 5% import duty from other countries and subsidizing the farmers in those countries, but not willing to support your own farmers, then that's a different kind of a choice. And I think there is still a requirement of MSP, even if you're fully surplus. In fact, if you're fully self-sufficient, then all the more important, because a surplus production may lead to prices collapsing. So all the more reasons for you to have the instrument ready, at least the mechanism ready to protect your farmers as and when that happens. It's not that the calamity will come to you by announcing 5 years earlier that we are going to come 5 years down the line. Financial crisis happened, COVID happened, demonetization happened, all sorts of things happen. So if there is a crisis, have the instrument ready. I don't think MSP role is going to be over even 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Himanshu. So I'm going to turn now to a farmer, Ajay Vir Jakhar. Many people know of him as chairman of the Bharat Krishak Samaj, a farmer himself, sometimes beneficiary of MSP, but also a thinker and a writer. And I'm going to request Ajay for his view.
Thank you. So input costs have risen, production risk is rising, agriculture markets are not efficient, and farmers are compelled to seek a legal guarantee for MSP as the last resort. I think it's a great idea to discuss, it's a great idea to debate, but there are larger questions that I'll come to. At the onset, let's be clear, no political party, whether BJP or the Congress, has supported legal guarantee of MSP or has supported the MS Swaminathan report when they are in power. They only support it when they are in the opposition. The government talks about doubling farmers' income, people talk about legal MSP, but basically both of them are presuming that incomes can be raised sufficiently and they are a silver bullet that farmers will live a better life. And that's the larger question. Is this the instrument? Is this the way to deliver what is required? So more fundamentally, I think, should we be focusing on farmer incomes as a silver bullet, or should we look at a new social contract and go back to the beginning, where we discuss that farmers deliver sustainably produced food and in return get better livelihoods, dignified livelihoods, employment opportunities for the children, better healthcare, and we invest in developing human capacity rather than focusing on incomes. And I'll come to this point as I continue, and that, I think, is the larger question, that can incomes be increased enough to provide from agriculture activities a new social contract benefiting farmers? I have come to an understanding that it is not possible, and I will dwell on that also. Today, I broadly highlight options to increase incomes and followed by greater detail about issues regarding legal MSP, which is the question today. I think there are many interventions and instruments to improve farmer incomes. And this is much before legal MSP also comes into play. You need quality seeds, planting material, genetic stock, agriculture inputs. Number 2, farm extension services. Number 3, weather forecast. Number 4, credit. Number 5, insurance for crop production and price risk. 7, rational import-export policies and inflation mitigation tools. Till we don't look at these parts, we cannot even come to price interventions. We cannot even come to supporting farmers through a price mechanism. First, we need to solve these problems, which the establishment has been unable to solve all these years. And this, I believe, is the prerequisite of going to the next step about even thinking about legalizing. Then further, when I think about legalizing MSP, I'm left scratching my head on how to do it, because I think there are 6 aspects of legal MSP that need to be addressed before we come to the point of thinking about legal MSP. So one is ambiguity in the meaning of legal MSP from the farmer's point of view of what they expect. Second is how much it will cost. The third is how it will be implemented. Fourth is, will it lead to dignified livelihoods, as I questioned? And fourth is, what impact, and this is the most important as far as the government and the people are concerned, what impact will it have on the thali, on food inflation? If we were to give a legalized MSP, what impact would it have? Exactly as Himanshu ji said, does legal MSP mean, first question would be, does legal MSP mean, is it a C2 plus 50 price, or is just a price to support farmers? And that also would have a lot of ambiguities as far as farmers are concerned. The second is that farmers growing the 23 crops who receive the MSP would be happy to have a legal MSP guarantee for those 23 crops, which is easier done, to tell you the truth. But what about other farmers? Other farmers would want it for all the produce. Second is, farmers believe that when there is legal MSP is enforced, traders who buy below legal MSP will be penalized. See, many people here will understand that that's not possible, because it negates the value of price discovery mechanism. But when you talk to farmers in the field, this is what they think. Any trader who buys below legal MSP, he'll be sent behind bars. And that's another ambiguity in the definition. The fourth is, how do you operationalize something? When you operationalize it, you will have to do it according to a area production plan based on what grows best in an agroclimatic region. You cannot allow people to grow, a paddy in Sangrur, or you cannot allow people to grow eucalyptus in Jaisalmer or something like that. So basically, it'll have to be according to an agroclimatic design, and that will create problems because farmers will not want to will want to grow the most profitable crop, and the government will say that we will only incentivize a crop which the government needs from that area, which is agroclimatically right. So this will also lead to a lot of unrest. Imagine Punjab farmers and Haryana farmers being told not to produce paddy in half the state. So these are ambiguities that need to be addressed. So there is something that needs to be done practically, something that is theoretical. The other parts, and I'm just on the first point of ambiguity in the definition. The other part is farmers will expect full production to be, supported. It could be through a price mechanism, Bhavantar scheme. It could be through procurement. Now, that will also create problems because that will increase the procurement to a lot. I think a better definition would be to use it for 5 acres as it is procurement happens for all crops other than wheat and rice. But again, those 23 crops, or at least those 2-3 crops where procurement happens 100% for 100% farmers, they would again agitate. That's where the agitations are. And last is also how MSP is calculated. Today, it's an average cost for the whole country. And for example, on paddy, approximately Punjab farmers receive C2 plus 50. On the same price, Chhattisgarh farmers receive only 17% over C2. Now, if you were to say, if the government was to say that we will give differentiated prices for different states, I think so there would be huge issues because no state would agree to allow their farmers to, other state farmers to receive a higher price. I mean, these are issues that need to be resolved before we come to legal MSP. So we need to build a more consensus on this. Now I come to the second point of how much it will cost. Right? In the last 10 years, MSP procurement has increased by 50% in this government. It has diversified geographically in terms of diversity of crops. It has diversified in the last 10 years. It is declared for 23 crops, approximately 20, which account for 28% of the agriculture output of this country. And it costs around, I think so, 2 lakh crore rupees of procurement. Now, depending on the definition of legal MSP, is it for 100% of the crops? Is it for 100% of the farmers? Is it for 100% of the country? The price could go up anywhere. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an economist. There are lots of economists who could figure it out, and there is a lot of definition. But I'm just saying 28% of the crops ka procurement is costing 2 lakh crores. 100% of the crops ka even support over a particular price, the price will jump up. And it's not, I'll come back to the inflation point later, but it's not possible to say कि हम procurement नहीं करेंगे, हम केवल price देंगे, because government needs to run the free food program. No government is going to walk away from it. So let's discuss this practically. Then who will foot the bill? Who will foot the bill for a legal MSP for 100% of the crops? I'm not even presuming it's going to be 10 lakh crores. People have said that, but even if it's less, who's going to foot the bill? There is already a scheme where states can partly fund the MSP program where the center gives some of the money, but the states are so busy giving populist dole-outs of free electricity and free bus rides and everything that they are literally bankrupt. They can never partly fund the scheme. The other option is we can say the central government is responsible, they will fund it. If the central government was to fund a scheme like this, then obviously it has to do with devolution of funds in the finance commission. Then the central government is going to say, we are going to pay so much for you, you're going to reduce your percentage of devolution, which could be 4 or 5% or something. I don't know which states would agree to it if hypothetically it also agreed. Then is how it will be implemented. I am a citrus farmer and I do not use MSP. And for 70 years, my family has grown citrus. Of course, it's failing on my farm now because of waterlogging issues, which could again be because of monoculture and because of MSP. That's a different story. But as a farmer growing perishable produce, I personally think that extending MSP to perishables is not, you cannot implement it. On every tree, on every plant, you will have many grades and varieties of fruit. They are not like wheat, or they're not like pulses that could get harvested in one shot like maize. They get harvested over weeks. They get harvested even sometimes maybe more than a month, like bangan hai, tomato hai. You pick up the ripe one and send it. It's not a one-time harvest happens. And the price in the market comes not because of MSP, comes because of yield, but price comes because of quality of the produce. So that's a difference. So I think it's easier to have MSP for field crops but not have it for vegetables. I don't know how. I have not been able to understand how we can extend it to farmers growing vegetables, and that's where the real value is. That's where the real risk is also of growing. Now, two more points. One is, now this is the fourth point. Will it lead to dignified livelihoods? I've written about this earlier. Around 44% of India's population. In fact, the number of people dependent on agriculture has increased in the last 5-7 years. Incidentally, I think so. We are on the same track as maybe Afghanistan and other places where people have actually increased in numbers have increased. Or farming. Normally, people say that farming se nikalna chahiye logon ko, reduce the pressure, but it's happening the other way around. Now, we are saying that 90% of the farmers, which is landless labor, small and marginal farmers, ka land holding is so less that they either have no surplus, or their surplus is so little that were they even to get a C2 plus 50 price, they would not have, their incomes would not increase enough for them to live a dignified livelihood from their profession. And it's not possible. So who are we helping when we are saying a legal MSP? Is the benefit going to go to that 80% of Indian farmers, which is labor, farmers who have 1 acre of land, 2.5 acres of land, rain-fed farming, where maybe you're supporting on price, agar barish hi nahi hui, so it's a different story. So maybe they're growing one crop, maybe they're growing two crops. So this is an issue that I think needs to be thought over, because I don't think so. This is an instrument to lead to dignified livelihoods. You will need other things to do it. And lastly, the most important thing is food inflation. How will the cost of the thali increase because of increased MSP? And priority of all governments in the past, in the present, and in the future is not going to change. We may debate, we may discuss it, we may deliberate it, we may keep writing about inflation. Even the economic survey talks about the same issue this time, but RBI is not going to listen. And the government is not going to listen. So a C2 plus 50 price of a legal guarantee would have a cascading effect on food inflation and the thali. Nor would the government allow it, and the people would be down on streets. Tomato ke liye to sarkar badal jati hai. And now you're saying कि सब फसलों के लिए हम MSP दे देंगे, C2 plus 50 दे देंगे. I don't know, no calculation is done. I had called CRISIL like 2 weeks ago when I got the invitation. I said, can you do a quick calculation for me? How much will inflation increase because they do this thali, they come out with this figure, but they didn't, I think so it was too contentious for them. They didn't come back to us after the initial criticism where they said it only 21,000 crores is required for legal MSP. If you look at government will never allow it. Government does stock holding limits. It doesn't allow trading in futures. Sugar, paddy, wheat exports are banned, even onion exports are banned. Ye sab dekhte hue, I don't think so. No government is going to allow it. So, as Himanshu ji was saying, I would say that we need to reframe the narrative, not to the question that how to deliver MSP, but how to deliver a new social contract. Go back to the drawing board and discuss how do you deliver dignified livelihoods for farmers? How do you ensure that you build their human capacities? How do you do all those things, especially for the small farmers, especially for the landless farmers? And where do you invest your scarce resources? We are not like USA and Europe where we have 1% of the population or 2% of the population is involved with agriculture and you can support them the way you want. We have 44% of the population. States are nearly bankrupt. The central government is borrowing money like no one's business. So I really think we need to evolve a new narrative and talk about investing in building human capacity, that people can be better employed and they have better healthcare, education, public transport. That's where the investment should go in if you really want to help majority of the farmers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay. Do I take it from your last bit that you believe that this consumer bias in policy, which is what you are...
But even farmers are consumers. So I forgot to say that. Even farmers are consumers. Unlike 50 years ago, farmers don't grow everything they eat now. and farmers don't grow. So inflation even impacts farmer.
You would say that is the strongest argument against the idea of legislating or mandating MSP?
No, it's not an argument about mandating. It's about, see, I'm not trying to, see, I don't, as a farmer working with a farmers organization, I'm not much interested in theoretical abstracts and paradigms. I'm saying practically जो होना ही नहीं है, जो कोई सरकार करेगी नहीं, ना बीजेपी ने करना है, ना कांग्रेस ने करना है, कोई सरकार नहीं करेगी, तो उस पे बहस क्यों कर रहे हैं? अपने को उस चीज पे बहस करनी चाहिए. No, both of them don't talk to me. Congress thinks I'm BJP, BJP thinks I'm Congress. So they're both sensible. They don't want people like me who criticize both of them. I'm saying when both of them are not going to do it, why waste time discussing stuff that is a theory? Let's discuss practical stuff. कि ये नहीं होने वाला है. What is the low-hanging fruit? You know, like I said, how can you increase incomes? How do you get elections in mandis? How do you, election ही नहीं होता है मंडी में, कोई किसान संस्था मांगती नहीं है इलेक्शन मंडी के अंदर. They want legal MSP. अरे पहले मंडी में चुनाव तो मांगो. So जितना responsible I think the governments have been in the last 20 years, equally responsible so many of these farmer organizations have been, because they are not picking up the real issues, which is RBI inflation, which is mandi regulation, governance, and these are issues that make a difference.
Okay, I'm not going to let you get into more trouble. So with farmer organizations, but thank you for your very interesting, candid thoughts. So our fourth speaker is actually another person from the ground, but maybe representing a different perspective. Kiran Vissa, many of you know, is part of the Alliance for Social and Sustainable and Holistic Agriculture. I'm sorry, you always bring in socialistic. Must be my educational bias. As many of you know, this alliance has done some wonderful work in raising awareness. Kavita Kurugranti ji has been at the forefront of many of these debates. Today she couldn't be here, and Kiran is representing ASHA. So Kiran, over to you for your thoughts.
It's fine. Yeah. So in issues of tenant farmers, it is because of him and Kavita, because no one else talks about tenant farmers. They have gone to court. They have obtained various orders from Andhra Pradesh High Court, and it is due to their diligence and work on the ground that some people like us understand the real issue of tenancy.
Thank you, Siraj, and thank you, Pravesh, for inviting me. And I'm sorry to be replacing the only woman who was scheduled to speak in the panel. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of ASHA, as well as I'm part of Raitu Swarajya Vedika, which is a farmers organization that works on the ground in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, many districts around the two states. And I'm also part of the Samyukt Kisan Morcha and All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee. To some extent, I would like to be speaking on behalf of farmer organizations in general, for whom this MSP, a guaranteed MSP, has been a huge demand. And it is something, just to put it in context, I think that every farmer organization, when I say every, I don't mean mathematically 100%, but I mean that a very large number of farmer organizations have been demanding this, and including the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, who has come out on the roads and demanding that the BJP government does one thing for farmers, then it should be the guaranteed MSP. So we really need to understand, from a farmer's point of view, from a farmer's organization point of view, why this is necessary. And also there is a lot of thought also that has gone into the mechanics of how this should be implemented. In fact, I have a copy of an act, a bill which has been drafted and also introduced both in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, of course, bills don't expire, so it is still on table in Rajya Sabha. So a lot of thought has gone into what it means and how it should be done and so on. Of course, it's a complicated thing when you go into implementation. But firstly, I just wanted to say 2 or 3 things about why this is such an important thing. And like Harish pointed out, farmers are in an existential crisis. Farming is an existential crisis, and farmers are in a deep economic crisis. And it is not just a crisis of farmers that we sit from outside and see. the kind of unsustainable urbanization and emptying of villages that we see, and why unemployment is such a big issue in the nationwide elections and every state elections. A lot of it has to do with agriculture becoming unremunerative, and getting a fair price for whatever they produce, I think is the very, very core and the first important thing that needs to be assured to the farmers. Of course, like I communicated to Praveshji and Sirajji about the title of this series, what's the next big idea? I have an issue with in the sense that I don't think that one silver bullet, is going to address the issues in agriculture. In that, I agree with what Ajay Vir was saying. That we of course need something which addresses the climate change, the climate crisis, the crop insurance, and many other things. Go down facilities to Pravesh has been working on FPOs, collectivization. So a lot of things need to be addressed. So we should not think in terms of one silver bullet. I hope that the series will come out with several next big ideas for agriculture, but all of them need to be actually implemented to address the crisis. So this is such a huge thing involving such a large section of Indian population that it can't be pushed to the back burner any longer. And that's the reason why the farmers have come out onto the streets. And the latest big protest of farmers which happened just before the elections is also on the legalization of MSP. So I would say that not as a single silver bullet, but as one of the most important things that the farmers require is a guaranteed MSP. And like Himanshu was saying, basically, if you don't have a guaranteed MSP, then it means you don't have an MSP. I think that should be clear. The fact of having the government declaring minimum support price means that they should be guaranteeing it. If they don't guarantee it, then it's not a minimum support price, it's just an eyewash. And if they're doing that for the last 40 years and getting away with it, it's not something that farmer organizations are going to allow them to get away with it, is the position. So then the question is, how do we get into the guaranteed MSP and so on? Some of the issues which have been raised. I would just say that, 2 or 3 things I would like to put on the table just in terms of why the MSP is such a core issue. Siraj was talking about tenant farmers and sharecroppers that we work with. So increasingly, agriculture in the country is actually being done by those who do not own that piece of land. Whereas many of the schemes and things that the government is coming up with are tied to that piece of land and who owns that piece of land, including all the cash support schemes, whether it's PM Kisan, whether it's Raitu Bandhu, Raitu Bharosa, everything, So if the farmer who owns the landowner who owns the land is actually not doing the cultivation, then how do you actually reach the farmers who are really cultivating? What the farmers who are really cultivating, which is increasingly tenant farmers. In Andhra Pradesh, it's about 50 to 60%. In Telangana, it's 36%. We've done an extensive survey on that. Even Uttar Pradesh, I think that there was a study done in about 8 districts by CSD, which showed that 50 to 60% of the agriculture is done by the tenant farmers. So the only thing that they have at the end of the season is the bags of whatever crop that they've produced. So if they get a good price for that, that is when their livelihood gets a boost. If they don't get a good price for that, and the government is putting 6,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees or whatever amount of rupees in the landowner's account, that doesn't help farmers. And increasingly it is the tenant farmers who are doing cultivation, because most of the next generation of people who own land are not really doing agriculture. I think most of us here realize that. So price of the produce, fair price, I think is still the most important instrument to help the farmers, especially those who are really doing the agriculture. So one thing that guaranteed MSP doesn't mean is that the government should procure all the crops. All the crops and all the quantity of all the crops produced, because that is one misconception which gets pushed, and government is very happy to kind of project that and then say that 9 lakh crores are required and so on. And that's where I take issue with what Ajay Vir was saying about 2 lakh crore rupees for the procurement. See, 2 lakh crore rupees is the is what the government spends on procurement because it wants to run the food security program, and it is not a in that sense it is not an expense of an MSP scheme. When the government procures a certain quantity of paddy or wheat, it is actually getting the value of that. So in that sense, it's not an expense. It's an expenditure of the food security scheme. It's not an expenditure of the procurement scheme. You're procuring, you're getting something of value. You're not throwing the money out for free. So it's not an expense of the procurement program is what I'm saying. When we say that when the government says that 9 lakh crores are required or 14 lakh crores, these kind of figures are thrown out. Whenever farmers come onto the street asking for MSP, I think it's all completely a false notion. We actually did a calculation both in 2018 when we first came out with this bill on the roads, based on the 2017-18 prices. When we looked at the MSP that was declared by the government and the actual prices that the farmers are getting, and what is the gap between them, we found that it was about 49,000 crores in that particular year. Based on 2022-23, when we did a detailed analysis of all the prices and the gap between the MSP, we found that it was 26,400 crores. So I'm saying that we are not talking about to ensure that the farmers get at least the MSP which is declared. We are not talking about a budget breaking kind of an exercise. Of course, farmers are also demanding that the MSP should be increased. That's a separate, and it comes on top of that. So whether that should be C2 plus 50% or C2 plus 25%, I think on that farmers are ready to have a negotiation with the government. But MSP should definitely be remunerative to some extent or the other. It cannot be something which is unrelated to cost. So at least the comprehensive cost of cultivation should be covered by the MSP, and MSP could also be used for certain incentive signals and so on. You may give say C2 plus 20% to paddy and C2 plus 50% to pulses. All those things are on the table, but right now the problem is that MSP is declared in 23 crops, but except in paddy and wheat, where the government procures it because they need for the PDS system, in none of the other crops there is any meaningful intervention by the government when the price falls below the MSP. So first you guarantee that. And then we can talk about how to use MSP as an instrument to incentivize various things and whether it should be C2 plus 25% or 50% or whatever. But the notion that you can have an MSP and the government can say, the Prime Minister can say MSP hai, tha, rahega and so on, without guaranteed MSP, I think is completely meaningless. A non-guaranteed MSP is not an MSP. So in terms of how to actually the mechanism of implementation, basically, like I said, the government procuring all the produce is not the meaning of guaranteed MSP. The guaranteed MSP means that if the farmer who's growing whatever crop out of these 23 crops is not getting the MSP, then the government is obliged to do something about it. So what it does can vary. So even in the bill that we drafted, we are talking about a basket of options. Of course, the government should expand their procurement basket for the food security system for the sake of food security, to include pulses and oil seeds and other elements like millets is already included but hardly procured. So you expand the food security basket is one way. Then the procurement also increases. Then the farmers get a better price. Then you have a effective market intervention scheme. There are NAFED, MarkFed. There is institutions which are created particularly for intervening in the market whenever the price drops below MSP, but most of them are not effectively deployed. That is because there's no accountability. When we are talking about legally guaranteed, what we are saying is that the government should be accountable to intervene when that price drop is there, and not just let NAFED and MarkFed sit with very low budget and very low capacity to intervene. And price deficiency payment system is another way of intervening, that if you really don't want to intervene in the market to purchase, then you pay the difference in the price to the farmer. So Bhavantar is one scheme like that. So there are of course details to be worked out on how to make those schemes work effectively and so on. But if we really want to put our all our minds in terms of how to make things work better, this is the place to put in, is my thing, rather than pushing it under the carpet. So you have a basket of options through which the government can intervene. Depending on the context, depending on the state, depending on the crop, different instruments can be deployed. But ultimate result should be that the farmer should get the MSP. So this is the meaning of the guaranteed MSP, and that is what our bill actually lays out in in terms of clauses and so on, and vetted by some of the Supreme Court advocates and so on. So we believe we have a solid bill there which can be improved, and this bill was actually discussed with 14 senior political party leaders, including people like Sharad Pawar and so on, and they suggested many improvements, and after that this has been drafted. So let's not be under the illusion that actually farmers are demanding something, but actually they don't know what they're asking for, which is what actually the government would like the public to believe. Just a couple of points on, for example, the inflation question. So I definitely feel that bottom line, in principle, we should say that the burden for ensuring the affordable food, especially to the poorer people in the country, definitely should be borne by the government. Farmers are definitely for food security. However, that burden should not be borne by the farmers of the country. It should be borne by the government on behalf of all the citizens. How you make that mechanism work, should be up to them. But using inflation as a reason for keeping the agricultural prices down, I think is the very cruel thing. And of course, farmers, large number of farmers are also consumers, and many of them are also, PDS ration card holders. But if you calculate for a farming household how much is the benefit that they're getting out of the PDS system versus how much they would gain if they actually get a good MSP price, there'll be, I think, like an order of magnitude difference. So that I think is very clear. So farmers would definitely go for one, not the other. But at the same time, I'm saying that the burden of the PDS system and the food security basket, which we are saying should expand, should be borne by the nation and not put on the backs of the farmers. And I do feel that the MSP question, while I agree with Ajay ji that it's it's difficult to get the government in power to accept it, but we are actually finding that in many states, the state governments which are in power are doing something, at least towards more procurement and more MSP implementation than they were doing 10 or 20 years earlier. So I would not see actually the MSP as a battle which the farmers have lost or are destined to lose. I see that as a demand which is actually picking up more political currency, and therefore we should devote our energies on how to actually make it happen. So I think I'll just end there. I had a few other points to say, but maybe in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. Thank you so much. And we are just in time to open up this to the audience who have been very, very patient and attentive listeners. Before I do that, I must welcome my young colleague from Madhya Pradesh, Faiz Ahmed Kidwai, the Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, representing himself in this forum. Faiz is a person who has hands-on experience of implementing the procurement side. He was the MD of the Civil Supplies Corporation, I think 60-70 lakh tons in that year, and has been Commissioner of the Mandi, and one of the most experienced hands in the civil service today, who understands, and I hope that at some point he will come in and share some views. But it's open to the house now. If you want to ask a specific question to a speaker, please just name them. We'll maybe take 3 questions at one go, and then, yeah, the young man at the back.
In January, there was a report stated that more than 1 lakh crore Ministry of Agriculture surrendered more than 1 lakh crore in last 5 years.
तो पैसे की बात वही कहाँ से आएगा, एक तो ये कहता है कि वापस कर दिया जाए, तो if not for all the crops, can you have some idea, it can be like at least दो crops से extend कर दो, rice wheat लगता है उससे ज़्यादा extend करते हैं, secure crop के लिए, तो basically environmental vulnerable जो region है क्या वहाँ लाए जाते हैं। दूसरा मेरा
एक पूछ ले, देन एक पूछते हैं। अच्छा,
तो जो पैसा जो वापस दे रहे हैं वो मैं जो सेक्रेटरी के में उनको ही जानता हूँ कि क्या क्या ये अपने काम में नहीं की जाएगी या फिर ये पहले भी होता है, जो ऑफिसर या फिर जो कोई पैसा वापस करेंगे
your question first. Okay, one more. Yes, sir.
My question is from Ajay Vir Jakhar, particularly about inflation. Somehow I am unable to understand how inflation is going to affect when 80 crore persons are getting free rations and the weight of the ration in the food grain is substantial. So, if the price will go even up, they are not going to be affected at all. Number two, it is only a minimum support price. It is not a price which is going to increase the market price, say, whatsoever today is. When it will come down, only it will compensate it. Why is expecting that the inflation will go up? It is not going to go.
Right, sir. Thank you. One more question, then we can, yeah, please.
कि जो पेरिसेबल कमोडिटीज हैं हम सब पे एमएसपी नहीं दे सकते, पर एक किसान जो 5 रुपए का टमाटर केजी बेच रहा है बाहर, वही 5 रुपए का टमाटर अगर किसी मॉल में चला जाता है तो 100 रुपए केजी हो जाता है। अब क्या है सर, इसमें कौन सा मैकेनिज्म लग गया, कौन सी टेक्नोलॉजी लग गई जो सर किसान को सिर्फ 5 रुपए मिला और जो उसके मिडिल मैन थे जो वहां तक पहुंचाने वाले को 95 रुपए मिल गए।
So maybe this is your round, so wait.
I don't know. पहले I'll start with the last. So आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो, and that is why we need regulated markets, we need regulation, we need enforcement, we need accountability. It's a governance problem. It is, so these are different issues that will come up even if you have legal MSP. So basically that's what I said शुरू में कि you need interventions to get higher income for farmers, and उसमें मैंने आपको यही बोला कि markets चाहिए और regulated marketplaces चाहिए, price discovery mechanism चाहिए, आपको इंश्योरेंस चाहिए, प्राइस रिस्क का इंश्योरेंस भी चाहिए, प्रोडक्शन का भी चाहिए। अभी वी हैव प्रोडक्शन का इंश्योरेंस पीएम किसान ये इसमें मिल जाता है, इंश्योरेंस स्कीम में मिल जाता है, पर प्राइस रिस्क का नहीं है। सो वी नीड दीज इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स टू हेल्प यू विद दैट। अगर लीगल एमएसपी आपको दे भी देंगे और आपकी फसल खत्म हो गई है तो आपको तो कोई इंश्योरेंस नहीं है। सो दीज आर इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स दैट आर रिक्वायर्ड, और आई थिंक सो इस मुद्दे से ये अलग हैं और इसीलिए दिस डिमांड इज कमिंग अप। सो वी नीड टू गेट बाकी सब चीज़ों को इन प्लेस लाना, और अदर इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स नीड टू कम इन टू प्लेस फॉर दैट टू वर्क आउट। एंड इसलिए मैं पेरिशेबल्स में कह रहा हूँ कि बहुत सारे पेरिशेबल्स है, धनिया है, तोरी है, लहसन है, सब चीज़ें हैं, तो उनको अगर लीगल एमएसपी करना भी है तो वील हैव टू फिगर आउट कि किस फसलों के लिए कर सकते हैं, हर फसल के लिए नहीं हो सकता। दैट इज व्हाट आई वाज ट्राइंग टू से। और जहाँ तक इन्फ्लेशन का ख्याल है, सी देयर इज अनदर वे टू लुक। आई थिंक इन्फ्लेशन विल राइज बिकॉज प्राइसेस विल राइज, बट इफ यू लुक एट व्हीट एंड राइस, सरकार लेती है 30 रुपए किलो, मार्केट में देती है फ्री। लेट अस से कि एमएसपी होता ही नहीं, ए थियोरेटिकल क्वेश्चन है टू ऑल द इकोनॉमिस्ट, अगर एमएसपी होता ही नहीं व्हीट एंड राइस पे तो लोग किस कीमत पे खरीदते हैं उसको? वुड द प्राइस गो अप? वुड द प्राइस बी मोर देन 20-22 रुपीज जो सरकार दे रही है, या वुड द प्राइस एमएसपी रेट फॉल? You know, these are theoretical questions. My feeling is that when you give, see, people are demanding a legal MSP which is higher price than a market price. मैं सहमत हूँ बिल्कुल कि प्राइस हायर मिलना चाहिए, बट सरकार, let me finish, सरकार इन्फ्लेशन को देखते हुए कोई भी सरकार उस पर नहीं आने वाली है।
नहीं, हिमांशु जी ने कहा जब क्रैश करेगा तब उनको मिलना चाहिए।
5%
It is not
5% प्रोडक्शन ऑफ एनी वेजिटेबल गोज अप, प्राइसेस क्रैश। 5% से भी प्राइस क्रैश हो जाता है। सो दीज आर थियोरेटिकल इश्यूज की। थर्ड क्वेश्चन इज व्हाट? नो, आई एम ऑल लॉस्ट। सो अब बजट पे मेरे को नहीं मालूम है कि लाख एक्सपायर हो गया, बट आई वुड गेस दैट इट इज नॉट, नो आई डोंट वांट टू पास बिकॉज माय फीलिंग इज दैट द गवर्नमेंट, वो पास नहीं होता है, फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री का मेरे को लगता है ऑर्डर आता है कि अब खर्चा मत करो। Then his answer better. That is best.
Sorry. See, out of 1,15,000 crores which the department has,
almost 90,000 crore is 60,000 crore is for PM Kisan, and close to 20,000 crore is for modified interest subvention, which is when you get a KCC card, the bank charges you interest at 11%. Government subsidizes that by a certain percentage. So that is what goes to the bank. And the third is the PM Fasal Bima Yojana, which is about 15,000 crores. Now, these are all market linked. I mean, in the sense, if KCC, the offtake is not there, that money is not used. If PM Kisan, the budget is 60,000 crores, and if you only got to spend 50,000 and you get farmers only for 50,000, so 10,000 bachega hi bachega. Similarly, for Fasal Bima, since it's a scheme where the farmer has to give the premium and then the state also pitches in and the center also pitches in. So most of the savings were in these only. Now that added up to 1 lakh was another story, but this is what happened.
Money is not lost in the system, and it's not called upon. So it's not a fudge, and it doesn't sort of get lost. It's simply that it is budgeted but not called upon for expenditure. Okay, thank you.
I think what Harinder was saying was not that it is fudge. Harinder was saying there's incompetence in the system, that आप पैसा ही नहीं use कर पा रहे हो और एक तरफ आप कह रहे हो पैसा नहीं है. That is what he was, but that is not true.
So I think this round Ajay will not be asked a question. If we can have, yes, Madam.
Yeah, I'm Raya. So my question is to Himanshu sir. As you discussed about, like, what should be the strategy for expanding procurement in eastern states? Like in my experience from my field survey and also 2018-19 data, it shows that farmers' realization of price for paddy also is in West Bengal is below 30% than MSP. So, and if we talk about expanding infrastructure, as the data also shows that utilization of the storage capacity is also low. Even though the storage capacity is comparatively low there in northwestern states, even that is not utilized. Being agriculture and a state subject, what could be done to, like, the strategy to expanding procurement? Because there are those states like Bihar, West Bengal are the major consuming states for rice particularly. So what could be like done? That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Harvey.
देखिए, मेरा सवाल तो यहाँ दो फार्मर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लोग बैठे हैं उनसे है कि एक तो इनके बीच सहमति नहीं है, और दूसरा इंटरेस्टिंग है जो बिल बता रहे थे उस जिन सज्जन ने पेश किया, वो 2 बार बेचारे चुनाव हार गए लोकसभा का, जो है वो अपने राजू शेट्टी जी। तो मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि ये फार्मर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, उनका एक्चुअली स्टैंड क्या है ओवरऑल। दूसरे ये है कि बहुत सारे डिविजन्स हैं, कोई साथ में आता नहीं है। यहाँ भी हम देख रहे हैं कि डिबेट शुरू हुआ, अच्छा डिस्कशन है, और सारी डिमांड वो एमएसपी के चारों तरफ ही है। प्लस एक इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल ये है कि ये बताइए कि एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की सरकार 4, 5, 6 राज्यों में है, उसने उसको जो है वीट का एमएसपी दिया 2400 रुपया राजस्थान में, मध्य प्रदेश में, ठीक है, 3100 रुपये दिया छत्तीसगढ़ में, वो तो 50 और उससे भी ऊपर चला गया आपका सीट। माई पॉइंट इज दैट आप लोगों ने क्या इस मुद्दे पे कोई डिमोन्स्ट्रेशन किया, सरकार से कोई बात की? यूनिफॉर्म पहले जहां देने को तैयार है वही स्टेट गवर्नमेंट उसी पार्टी का हरियाणा में भी था, यूपी में भी था। तो तमाम सारे आपके जो बड़े 40, 50, 60 ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है फार्मर्स के, उनके कितने लोगों ने कहा भाई मध्य प्रदेश में मिल रहा है, राजस्थान में मिल रहा है गेहूं का, छत्तीसगढ़ में मिल रहा है, हमें यूपी में क्यों नहीं मिल सकता? माई पॉइंट इज दैट कि ये जो डिस्कशन और डिबेट उस तरीके का, एंड यू हैव बिकम वेरी कोजी टू बी फ्रैंक, क्योंकि क्या होता है कि एक प्रदर्शन कर लिया और 4 चिट्ठियां भेज दी, और फार्मर्स के बीच में उस तरीके का ये नहीं है। बेसिकली जो उनको उस वक्त तो उबाल आया था कानूनों के ऊपर, MSP was one of the point, and I know one of the person who basically started this All India Kisan Coordination Sangharsh Samiti, and to be frank, off record meeting. So my point is that कि ये जो रियल इश्यूज हैं, अब एक को तो पकड़ के बैठे हैं, अच्छी बात है, बट वो भी तो उसी से रिलेटेड है ना, और ये तो सबके सामने था। Why did not you raise this question to the central government कि भाई मध्य प्रदेश में 2400 कैसे दे सकते हो, यूपी में क्यों नहीं दोगे, पंजाब में क्यों नहीं दोगे, या हरियाणा में क्यों नहीं दोगे? चलो पंजाब दूसरी गवर्नमेंट थी, पंजाब में भी क्रांतिकारी गवर्नमेंट है, उनसे भी कह सकते थे, हरियाणा में तो उसी पार्टी की गवर्नमेंट थी, यूपी में उसी पार्टी की गवर्नमेंट थी। तो
Okay,
सवाल
Harish,
ये है कि
Harish,
these are the points.
We'll let Kiran answer this, and then we can take up your question. Right? Thank you.
Right. Harviji, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the mechanics of what is happening within the farmers' movements and so on, but definitely, I think that I would take issue with this thing about the farmers' movement is getting too cozy, because I think that the farmers' movement in the country is working against very very huge odds, and जैसा movement समित किसान मोर्चा के अंदर वो खड़ा हुआ, I think that took a lot of energy and lot of sacrifice, and of course it was triggered by very monstrous kind of acts which the government had brought in. So therefore, people were ready to wage like a life and death kind of struggle. But to expect that a life or death struggle will be waged on every single issue, I think is to misunderstand the situation of farmers in the country. Definitely, I think that at the state level, I mean, at the national level, you see a certain movement which is coming up, but at the state level, many movements are going on the MSP issue. अगर तेलंगाना में होता है पैडी के ऊपर, आंध्र प्रदेश में होता है अनदर क्रॉप के ऊपर. So I think that in general, farmers, not only on the MSP issue, but also on the issues of insurance or disaster relief, and so there are many movements which are going on. Why they're not fighting stronger, I think is a question that depends on so many other factors, so I don't want to get into that. But what I want to say is that definitely on this issue of getting a fair prices for the farmers and on the guaranteed MSP, the farmer organizations across the country are actually united, and a major struggle will be building up on this issue. But I also want to add that on the issue of crops that another youngster had brought up, why not increase it expand the MSP to another 2 crops and so on. I would say that the way to expand MSP is to expand it, the guaranteed MSP is for all the 23 crops which are currently being supported. Then you get into the questions of what to do with perishables, what to do with milk, and so on. But the 23 crops which are now being, for which MSP is being announced, actually cover 91% of the cultivated area. So we are not talking about a small fraction or only a small section of farmers benefiting. You cover 23 crops, it will cover, majority of the cultivated area in the country. And on the inflation, basically, I would like to say that ultimately, when we are looking at why agriculture is in crisis, definitely most other sectors in the economy have the incomes or the remuneration or the wages, and also the how much profit any occupation makes has increased enormously compared to agriculture. So because in agriculture, the income that farmers make or the gap between their expenses and the price that they get has been so small compared to all the other sectors. That is the reason for this crisis. So therefore, if the middle class, upper middle class of this country have to pay more for their food and for agricultural produce, I think that is a correction which has been waiting to happen for the last 20 years. So how to build a political will for that is a question. But not giving up that battle. I think that large price correction in agricultural commodities is actually required. And
एक मिनट साहब, हरवीर भाई,
No, I can give the answer. No, please, because this is a direct question to me. On record, I can say that agitation was started with one of my biggest involvement to all big. So, मतलब you are taking it on another way. मैंने ये नहीं कहा कि कितने लोग मरने चाहिए थे. मेरा सिर्फ ये था, नहीं, बिल्कुल, because I know them internal. I know them. I can tell in detail. But if you want to know, I can tell. Because no.
Digress. बाद में करेंगे. Harish ji, thank you. Himanshu ji, you had a lady's answer to give, and then I'm going to request 2 experts here for brief comments. Our distinguished former colleague, Kiran Kumar, Secretary of Food and Agriculture. So, you please give a small comment on this, and then the next person to speak will be Shweta. So, please be ready for that. Yes.
Okay, so very quickly, I mean, this question is very easy. I mean, Bihar actually particularly has been a very, what you call as a failed experiment. I mean, somehow it was convinced that you should basically abolish the APMC, and they did abolish the APMC, which has led to a very peculiar situation that a large amount of infrastructure which was already there for mandis. But if you go to Bihar and if you've done a field work, you know how there the farmers are basically being fleeced by private traders, and anybody can go and set up a market there, private market, and all sorts of things are happening. Market grains is being moved from there to take advantage of procurement, MSP or procurement prices in Punjab. All sorts of things are happening. I think very easy. Basically, you have to create investment. You have to basically build these storage spaces. You have to build markets. You have to run those markets, and you have to provide that infrastructure. That is the job of the government. And that is something that has to be done irrespective of whether you have a MSP program or not, or something like that. I think the second, I think I'll just take 2 minutes to intervene. And I think not getting into all the other debates, but at least this whole idea, the fatalistic idea that होगा नहीं जी तो छोड़ दो ना. बीजेपी भी नहीं कर रही है, कांग्रेस भी नहीं, होगा नहीं. ये होगा नहीं वाला जो चक्कर है ना, वो कि होना नहीं है तो फिर बात क्यों करनी है. I don't think it is to be decided either by BJP or the Congress. It is to be decided by the people of this country. A lot of things have happened in this country which people had been what we call as scaremongers would basically say कि देश बर्बाद हो जाएगा, खत्म हो जाएगा. This was true for NREGA. It happened. And I remember every column saying, देश खत्म हो गया, NREGA लगेगा, 5 लाख करोड़ में सब लोग को आपको मिनिमम वेज देना पड़ेगा, कम से कम 10 करोड़ लोग जो है वो मार्केट में आ जाएंगे, तो सारा जो है वो काम देना पड़ जाएगा. Nothing has happened. The scheme turned out to be beautiful during the COVID regime. When NFSA happened, and I can give you every person who was basically saying it will cost 50 lakh crores. गवर्नमेंट को घन पे जो है वो खरीदना पड़ेगा, फार्मर्स के यहाँ जो है वो रेड मारना पड़ेगा. All sorts of scaremongering was being done there. हो गया. पेंशन स्कीम होगा, सरकार बिक जाएगी. कल ही हुआ है, कुछ दिन पहले हुआ है. So I think that is not what people in this country think. And if that was the case, then there will not be any public struggle. We will say that ki theek hai, the other thing. This last point I wanted to say is that all this is very fine. ये holistic development की बात करेंगे, आप governance, broader governance की बात कीजिए, आप incomes की बात कीजिए, आप inflation की बात कीजिए. अरे भाई साहब, inflation हो रहा है जब record production हो रहा है, और जब इस देश में 2 साल drought था, तब inflation जो है lowest level पे था. अब समझाइए मुझे, आप समझाइए. RBI का जो interest rate highest है, and we are saying every year it is a record production. Every year. और इन्फ्लेशन हाईएस्ट लेवल पे है. 14-15 डबल ड्राउट था, इन्फ्लेशन वाज एट द लोएस्ट लेवल. अब हमको समझाइए, आपकी उस समय कौन सा एमएसपी लग गया था और अभी कौन सा एमएसपी लग गया है. आई मीन टू रिड्यूस एवरीथिंग एंड टू से दैट कि इन्फ्लेशन हो जाएगा, देश खत्म हो जाएगा, सरकार गिर जाएगी, अब आप लोग जो है वो सिर्फ जो है सब कुछ ही कर दीजिए. इट्स लाइक बेसिकली सेइंग अभी की बात छोड़ दो, लंबा 20 साल बाद हम जो है 50 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी होंगे तब हम सोचेंगे. I think somewhere issues are being highlighted which are absolutely, and Kiran has obviously pointed out, this 2 lakh crores. 10 lakh crore चला जाएगा, 50 lakh crore चला जाएगा. Absolutely no logic. Absolutely no logic. In fact, I can say, on the other hand, the government will make profit. If you basically buy it when the prices are low, have it in the stock, offload it when the inflation is there. That's what governments do. आप प्याज में तो यही करते हो, आप बाकी सब जगह भी तो यही करते हो. And if the cost inflation is so much, then you must think about it. That what is it important for inflation control? Stability of prices. And the stability of prices requires you to have a price policy which basically stops excessive fluctuations in prices, and MSP is a tool for that. It doesn't basically mean that you go and buy everything. And I have no problem in extending it to every crop. Do it. Why not? For the government should be prepared for that kind of a thing, rather than saying that you only do it for this one or that one. I think somewhere we have to have an idea of what is required at this juncture of time, what is the objective for which it is being done, rather than linking it to everything else in this country. उनका इनकम क्या होगा, भविष्य क्या होगा, उनका शिक्षा क्या होगा, स्वास्थ्य क्या होगा, वो सब चीज़ों की डिबेट we will continue having that debate. That debate is important, and I think there are lots of people who are continuing that debate. But right now, I think the debate is what exactly does an MSP mean, and I think that was the right question. It requires investment, it requires political commitment, and it requires an understanding of what exactly is a price policy, not just for agriculture, but for many other crops where the government intervenes. That's what I wanted to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, a former food secretary, agriculture secretary, person who has seen shortages, imported wheat, has dealt with the PDS.
I'm not going to.
What is your view?
I'm not.
Now you are
I'm not going to comment on any of them. I came as a listener. I wanted to understand what exactly does a legal guarantee for MSP mean, and I'm still searching for that answer. I've read your draft bill. Well, it's a beginning. I would say that, but I have some issues with some of the texts. But my understanding from today's discussion is that the government will guarantee a minimum support price if the farmer is willing to offer his produce at a designated place that the government may designate at whatever this thing. And government includes, in my definition, both the union government and the state governments. So the responsibility cannot be only of the union government, and therefore I think that creates a new legal dimension to the proposed bill in terms of the consultation with the state legislatures. That said, then it is not really a complicated exercise. If this is the definition, and we are not getting into a statutory minimum price or a mandatory minimum price, as in the sugarcane sector, I think that the debate changes significantly from what Ajay said. Then the C2 plus 50, etc., are questions of calculation. That's a different, and there was a statement that C2, this can be negotiated to 25 or 35 or whatever. So once you give a guarantee, and this is probably the same argument that came up in the Right to Food Act, the National Food Security Act. Why do you have to shift PDS into a rights-based regulatory regime? That is the question. And there also you say that if you fail to provide, you can pay cash. So the options of how you compensate would be built into the system. So that's a different kind of an exercise. So if it's that simple, and which I suppose is what it should be, I don't see a problem in doing this. Then the question of whether it should be 23, etc., can we do perishables, what is the other model? For that, I think this question that you have posed is probably not the right answer. In fact, we were looking in the BKS archives, and I must say it's now a digital archives, open source, anybody can log in and find out. There's a lot of debate in the 50s and 60s. In fact, I wish we could have read some of them, and they are very relevant even today. It's very interesting how agriculture got planned in those years. And those of you who are interested in research, I would seriously recommend that you look at some of them. And you just go there and search millet and see what you find. Very, very interesting stuff. So I would argue, like, what Harish would say, that we have to look at the next 10 years. What do we want to do? Where is the natural resource? Where is the... I think I would ask myself a very simple question. Can the farmer feed the country and repair the planet? That's the simplest question I would ask. And if the farmer has to feed the country, what should the government do? And I would leave it at that. And probably In fact, I wanted to go because you forced me to stay back. I thought and Kiran, I've seen your calculation of 48,000 crores. I have a disagreement with it. I'll discuss that separately with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Sorry I detained you, but I think this was worth it. So, Shweta, somebody who has written, taken strong stands on one side of the debate. What is your view now?
Thank you for this opportunity, sir. I mean, for me, it was like a Friday evening, and I would have enjoyed to learn from all of the three big mentors of mine who sit here. So there's so much that I can say, but I will tell you, because given that since the time I've started running this company, we've started working on this, there is so much more that the corporate sector is wishing to do for the farmers. And I'll give you an example. So, when we started working 2 years back, Mars Chocolate. So Mars Chocolate is, all of us know about, it's an American company. And what they are doing is, for example, they are procuring mentha oil from Barabanki, UP. They're going to the extent of understanding how much does it cost to have a decent life in Barabanki. We did a survey to tell them that. And then they made us survey the people from whom they were procuring and how much gap there was. And they said, we need to identify how can we fill up those gaps. So the debate as we see once we're sitting on from the corporate side is that MSP is just one of the things. It would not take you where the livelihood of the person that even Mr. Jakhar has been alluding to, and the corporate sector, by the way, is doing it. Now we are expanding the LIB work, living income benchmark work, to 20,000 farmers in UP, Bihar and Odisha. We're doing it right now in Telangana. We're doing it in Rajasthan also. So I feel that while I could have many opinions and I would still stand by lot of what I say on MSP, that it may not be the answer to all the problems that were raised here, because there are many more ways of resolving those problems. But having said this, even if legal MSP was given, it would not take the farmer where we wish him to be. There is so much distress otherwise, because we see that crops is not his main source of income. He is getting income from non-farm. He is getting income from other sources, and there is nothing we're doing about it. We need to help the farmers come up. And corporate sector, by the way, is doing a lot of it, and we can learn so much from it. So we are working on that concept, and I wish I had more time, but then I wish that it goes beyond MSP. There is so much more beyond MSP. And why 23? Why not just 5? Maybe why just 50? But I clearly believe in one thing is, and ये मैंने कई बारी लिखा भी है सर, एक बार हम हिसार में पोल्ट्री फाउंडेशन के साथ बात कर रहे थे, पोल्ट्री फेडरेशन वालों के साथ, एंड दे सेड हमने बहुत ग्रो किया है. आई सेड कौन सी चीज सरकार ने बहुत अच्छी करी है? एंड ही जस्ट सेड वन थिंग. ही सेड एक ही चीज बहुत अच्छी करी है, कि उसने कुछ नहीं किया. हमको छोड़ दो, हमको इन्वॉल्व मत करो. सर आज की डेट में मध्य प्रदेश का सोयाबीन फार्मर कॉल्स अप एंड सेज कि पाम की ड्यूटी कब बढ़ रही है, मैंने सोयाबीन लगा लिया है. So even if he knows there is an MSP, he's incentivized to produce it. He knows palm की ड्यूटी तो कम होगी नहीं. So therefore मैं कितना नुकसान में रहूँगा. So I feel there is so much more beyond MSP that we can build on and work on. But of course, I learned from all of you, sir. Sorry if I said something to trigger another debate.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your views. So any other? Yes, madam. Yes.
May I get?
Just wanted to say we have to be really wary of the corporate sector. Intervention in anything to do with agriculture. We saw the examples of Monsanto. We saw a huge number of examples. I can, quote this till, whatever time. So we have to be extremely wary of any kind of involvement from the corporate sector. And also, let's look at the kind of double standards that there is. For instance, the amount of budget foregone that is written for the corporate sector, nobody cries about it. But the moment you talk about the farmers, you talk about PDS, you talk about, any such social security, people are up in arms about, how much it's going to cost the country, it'll ruin everybody, like somebody else was saying. So I think we need a level playing field. There's complete double standards in this country. One set of rules for the corporate sector, another set of rules for farmers, another set of rules for non-profits in this country, which are being now raided by the income tax, by the ED. I mean, next to the farming sector, I think the non-profit sector employs the largest number of people today. It also provides gainful employment. It contributes 2% to the GDP, and they are being run down completely. So I think what we should ask is a level playing field. And, we are sick and fed up of these double standards. of one sector being favored, wood and red carpets, and the rest of the country goes to the dogs. So please, we need a level playing field.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your very interesting. Yeah, you had a question. This will be the last because I want to give a
I
final
have a
round
very small observation.
comments to the
Not a question, but a very small observation. I'm Professor Amanpreet Gill from Delhi University. My observation is that today's discourse, and largely discourse on MSP, is silent on the darker aspect of the MSP, the long-term damages MSP can cause to some ecological area, some state, to the livelihood of people, to the farm labor, to so many countless things, as we see it happening in Punjab and Haryana. MSP can bring undesired changes in the cropping pattern, which are very difficult to change further. So MSP, let's link MSP with the behavior, farmer behavior, and then further complicating things. So much damage. And I see that MSP induced cropping pattern change. I see it is a real national security threat in Punjab and Haryana than any other thing. So this way, to see MSP as solution of all the farm activity and all that, it's a naivety for me. From my own observation, I come from Tarantaran. That is the district which produces non-MSP produced basmati. That's a good source of export income. And then I see that all things then are tied down to MSP. Nothing beyond MSP is thought. So MSP for me has become a maximum sarkari price. It's not minimum support price. When the government comes in the market as the bulk purchaser, there is not a single rupees price rise in that particular crop. So it has become a maximum sarkari price in Punjab for last 40 years. These are the darker aspects to the MSP. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Thank you so much. So one final round of comments. Okay, very short. Yeah?
कि जब बताते हैं कि वी ऑल नो द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ एमएसपी, जो किसान सम्मान निधि 6,000 रुपए है, उसको हम 10,000 रुपए बढ़ाने की मांग क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? एमएसपी तो रही, पर किसानों को 6 की जगह 10 मिले.
That will be the last question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Sir just said about the MSP being a sort of incentive to producing crops that harm the environment. Can it not be designed in a way to incentivize cultivation of crops that both help repair the planet, which is what a previous speaker mentioned, and also in a way that will add to the basket of goods that are consumed by the consumer? For example, maybe incentivize the production of pulses and oil seeds. Can that not be the way forward?
Actually, the first speaker, you perhaps came late, did exactly talk about, maybe using the MSP more intelligently to incentivize shall we say, better class of merit goods. So, point, fair enough. Okay, yes, you have the last word.
Sir, my specific question to Harish ji. In his intervention, he mentioned that do away with the PM Kisan. That maybe I understand wrongly, maybe I wrong understand. But you have mentioned that MSP is okay, but let's with the PM Kisan, you have some issue. Can you explain it? What are the issue with this? Because this question is related to the last question the gentleman had raised.
Okay, so thanks so much to the floor. We'll go down this table. Harish, you can take up this question if you want and make your final comments.
No, so what I said is that PM Kisan is supposed to be for the Kisan, but which Kisan is benefiting from it? I mean, as far as I see, a Kisan is a meaningful producer, and if you're a meaningful producer, giving 6,000 rupees a year doesn't make sense at all. Okay, because the farmer is producing much more, So if you want to give 6,000 rupees, you give it as a general welfare kind of a thing. Don't call it as a PM Kisan. Okay, and as I said, I am not in favor of per acre and per hectare and per farmer flat payments. I would prefer the MSP. And let me now come a little into the mechanics of how this can be done. See, for MSP, I just need data on two things. How much quantity a farmer has sold. Second, at what price. Once I have this information, I can just transfer the difference between the MSP and the thing. So I would say that if I were to if I were to say implement the scheme, let it be a central scheme. The center will guarantee the payment of the price difference, provided it has the data. So who will generate the data? The data has to be generated by the state. Okay, that is every time a farmer sells, I should have the proof of how much he has sold and at what price. And if that data is available to me, so it is like it's like a sales invoice, right? And according to me, the MSP can be this kind of MSP guarantee can be a tool by which you will make your entire farm trade formal. I'll have record today on every farm, every transaction which is happening. Today, I don't even have data on the production. On what basis are we saying? I don't know. But once you have data where you say, every transaction will be accounted for, and the farmer has the incentive, he will demand a receipt from the trader. Okay, it will set. I think suddenly you will have a lot of data. So this is another benefit of it. So suppose, like, I think somebody was asking about Bihar farmers not getting MSP, etc. Let Nitish Kumar let him come out with a scheme where what the farmer is selling, and let the data come out. Then the center will pay the price difference. So if he doesn't, this has to be conditional. It has to be conditional on data being generated. And once you make that the condition, then I'll tell you, then mandis will come up everywhere. You will have data, including electronic platforms and everything, all the things which we want. And so let us not confuse ourselves. This is a very simple concept. How much? What is the market price? What price the farmer has sold? How much, and what is the MSP? And I think this can be even for your tomato, etc. I think if a farmer getting 5 rupees, it's a crime. I think definitely the farmer deserves 10 rupees. So if I have data how much a farmer has sold in Kurukshetra and at what price, then what is the confusion? I think we are unnecessarily trying to see too many things. And let's be very clear. For a farmer, there are two things which are most important. And the farmer actually, one is price, the other is water. उसको अगर आप पानी दोगे और भाव अगर दोगे, वो कुछ भी उगाएगा. If tomorrow you are saying कि नहीं, इसको जो है आपको जो है millets उगाना है, he will grow millets. You tell him, and exactly what Kiran was saying. If the government is so keen that you promote millet, you give C2 plus 50 for millets. Don't give C2 plus 50 for paddy. So you can, so what I'm saying is, the MSP as a tool, guarantee, we can do many things about it. This can become a source of data generation. Okay, more accurate information on what is our production. Today it's all यहाँ बैठ के बोल रहे हैं कि 110 million tons of wheat. So much of production of oranges. हमें पता नहीं है. Whereas once you start generating data, I'll tell you, everything, as they say, kya, doodh se, kya, whatever, pani, whatever, all those things, you'll have, and I think you just, the government pays the, price difference, and it can be implemented across crops, whether tomato, whether it is onion or something. Let's not say, ye perishable mein nahi hoga. Kyun nahi hoga? Once you say that this is the price, this is the minimum price, and I know कि farmer ने 2 रुपया के लिए बेचा, यार वो difference दे दो ना, क्या है उसमें, कितना पैसा लगेगा? I don't see why it is so complicated कि then whether this will increase the farmers, अगर farmer खुश हो जाएगा, whether his farmers, वो सब छोड़ो ना. See, what farmer should get a price, and so that he remains in business. Someone like me, I need my salary, right? There's no point in saying that नहीं अगर आपको salary सिर्फ मिल जाएगा, आप खुश रहेंगे क्या? Maybe not. Maybe I want other things. But these are fundamental things we are giving. Farmer farmer has, taken 6 months, 5 months to grow a crop. At the end of the day, if he doesn't know what is the price, come on, this is, this is criminal, and I don't think one needs to be बहुत ज़्यादा ये philosopher और economist भी बनने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. It's very clear, इतना price है, मैंने इतना बेचा है, इतने रुपए के लिए बेचा है, और सरकार का ये प्राइस है, और ये प्राइस डिफरेंस दे दो, एंड मेरा अकाउंट पे आ जाएगा, एंड पूरा डेटा आ जाएगा, सारे मंडी बन जाएंगे जहां पे है, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक ट्रेडिंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स कहीं पे भी, इट कम्स आउट. सो व्हाट इज आई डोंट सी व्हाट इज द डिफिकल्टी इन ऑल दीस थिंग्स. एंड देन एज आई सेड इन द बिगिनिंग, नाउ यू वांट टू, इफ यू वांट फार्मर्स टू रिमेन इन बिजनेस, यू विल हैव टू गिव दिस थिंग. इफ यू डोंट वांट टू गिव इट, ठीक है, देन फाइन.
यूपी में सर,
Okay, Harish, thanks.
यूपी में डाटा अवेलेबल है.
Really, very passionate.
यूपी में डाटा अवेलेबल है, हिमांशु जी.
Right. Okay. Kiran.
Yeah.
They should give the difference. तो योगी जी क्या कर रहे हैं? देना चाहिए.
वो तो आपको बताना पड़ेगा.
Closing comments from the panel, please. Thank you.
Right. So closing comments. One point I wanted to make on inflation. One more point is basically that, for example, the biggest policy that this government has done, which has fanned inflation, is the petrol diesel price swala. But that didn't, they had the political will for doing that. Though it had a huge impact on inflation. So I'm just saying that, the governments can have political will to do if they think that that is the thing that will, that's the right thing to do, or give them the benefit. So therefore, I don't think that is a make or break issue, as far as the MSP policy is concerned. Secondly, I think the ecological dimension definitely is extremely important. And I would say that the reason for the Punjab-Haryana imbalance is the non-implementation of MSP. I would not say it is due to the implementation of MSP, because MSP is declared in 23 crops. आप तो MSP को implement नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन food security system को implement कर रहे हैं. And in your food security system, you have not had a diverse basket, and you only had paddy and wheat. That is the cause, not the MSP implementation. Actually, if you implement in 23 crops, which include all the millets, all the major millets, it includes all the pulses, includes all the oil seeds, then obviously you will have a much more diverse cropping system. In fact, Shweta's article also mentions, that you increase the MSP of tur dal by some 9%, and the area of production increased by 90%. So you definitely should implement the MSP in pulses and oil seeds and millets. Definitely the area will grow up. And you can give additional incentive and do C2 plus 60% for millets if you want. So so definitely I think ecological dimension needs to be taken care of, but that is through the implementation of MSP also it can be done. Once again, I just want to re-emphasize that we should not look at MSP thing as the solution or the silver bullet, but definitely as one of the important elements of the whole thing, because fair price for produce anywhere in the world for the farmers is one of the key issues. So let's not look at it as if you solve all the other problems only, then you get to the MSP issue. You solve all the other problems also. In fact, what we really require is a good, fair income for farmers. And we've been talking also from ASHA about income guarantee and income security kind of thing. So in the income security, getting a fair price is one of the major parts of it. Then how do you handle disasters? How do you handle, how do you collectivize farmers so that you can have a better bargaining capacity? All these things are part of that income security solution. But MSP is definitely one of the key parts of it, is what I would say. Thank you.
Professor Himanshu.
Quickly, two things. One is obviously the question that you asked, and I just wanted to say that, again, emphasizing MSP is a solution to one particular problem. It's like, it's not a solution for everything that is there in agriculture. What Kiran was saying, it's like a paracetamol. बुखार बढ़ेगा, लेना है. अब उससे paracetamol से cancer cure नहीं होगा. And you need multiple different kind of medicines for different kind of a problem. But saying that this is the magic wand which will cure all other things. आपका पाँव टूट गया तो उसके लिए प्लास्टर कराना पड़ेगा. पैरासीटामोल लेने से वो सॉल्व नहीं होने वाला है. But if you have a fever, then you have to give the paracetamol. That's the only thing. Don't 6,000 से 10,000 क्या 50,000 कर दें, हमें क्या फर्क पड़ता है? But that is not a question for MSP. That's not linked to MSP. That is absolutely clear. Keep that in mind. All of the issues that is there. That's number one. नंबर 2, आपने जो बोला इकोलॉजिकल डैमेज, अगेन, एंड उसका सिंपल आंसर है अ बैड एमएसपी पॉलिसी is very, very dangerous. And what we have currently today is a very, very bad MSP policy. The problem is not the MSP policy. Problem is that in the name of the MSP policy, we are basically implementing as a price mechanism or price scheme, which is actually dangerous. This whole rice wheat thing, again, Kiran was pointing out, and everybody else is pointing out, that you need to have a proper price policy for agriculture. You do not need an instrument to fulfill your obligations for the NFSA. That is not what an MSP policy is. It requires, again I said, universal coverage, universal investment, and a universal coverage in terms of crops, not just in terms of the mechanism in that sense. So that, I think, is an important point of it. So keep that in mind. All the problems that we're talking about are problems related to that. And last point, make up your mind. Do you want government to regulate in the government to intervene in the market or not? If you're saying leave the government out of it and everything, then the government should not have any policy on import duty, should not have any policy in stocking, should not have any policy on any other thing. But when you say that हम palm oil भी cheap में import करेंगे और हमारे जो है वो farmers को पैसा नहीं देंगे, that is an intervention. If you're allowing, and you are not allowing our wheat farmers to export, when the market prices go up, then that's an intervention. तो उस समय भी क्यों करते हो फिर? So you can't have this duplication, I mean, this kind of hypocrisy that हम आपका प्राइस बढ़ने भी नहीं देंगे, आपका प्राइस घटेगा तो हम कुछ करेंगे भी नहीं. Make up your mind. So I think the problem here is basically that we are basically having a very, very bad MSP policy. That is a problem, and it's like any other disease. आप रोज सुबह सुबह उठ के पैरासीटामोल खा लीजिएगा तो obviously आपको एक side effect होगा ही. You're supposed to be used when it is to be used, not to be used. I think somewhere make it a very, very simple clarity in what exactly do we mean. All the problems will be solved, and it is doable, eminently doable. It is something which is quite possible, unless you have, I mean, as long as you have clarity on what exactly do you want.
Thank you, Professor Himanshu. Thank you so much. Ajay, last word.
So I have been trying to say that let's fight battles we can win. And the first battle I suggest to get a better price for farmers is that we should say कि landing cost of MSP crop should not be below MSP. एक simple सी demand करोगे तो आपको सारी pulses की MSP मिल जाएगी, आपको सारी oil seeds पे MSP मिल जाएगी. बिना MSP का कानून बनाए हुए आप ये करोगे. So there are ways to get price, and there are battles that can be won on the field. I am not saying कि I'm not in agreement कि हम 20 साल चीज के लिए लड़ेंगे, far out नहीं है. Generations are being lost. 5-10 साल 20 साल चले जाएंगे. जो छोटी छोटी battles farmers के behalf पे हम जीत सकते हैं, उनको जीतना चाहिए. We should not look at a bigger picture कि we'll win a bigger battle. We should win small battles, and I think so the first battle for MSP, because this is the topic, is that don't allow food grains या oil seed जिसके लिए MSP declare है below landing cost. अपने आप ही सारी MSP मिल जाएगी, नहीं मिलेगी तो आप मेरे को बताओ, या price ही नहीं आएगी. And procurement, and yes, MSP is a solution, but it is not one of the major solutions, because जैसे मैं कह रहा हूँ जो tenant farmer है, जो छोटा farmer है, जो landless है, उसको तो benefit नहीं मिलने वाला है उससे. तो it is not to say कि human capacity मत बनो, उसको employment opportunity चाहिए, उसको education चाहिए, health चाहिए. These are not 20-year ideas. These are things that you need today. उनके बारे में who is benefiting from that legal MSP? करना चाहिए, हो सकता है तो करो. It is easier done for 23 crops, but that leads to monoculture. It is not easier done for other crops. It can come in stages, but we first need to focus on low-hanging fruit. We need to first build that infrastructure on which this can be built. Price mechanism वगैरह ये सब करने वाला है. So that's my only thing. And हरबीर सिंह जी पूछ रहे थे कि किसान संस्थाएं क्यों नहीं ये टॉपिक मंत्री से लेते. भाई हमने तो 20 बार अपॉइंटमेंट मांग ली, लिख के, फोन करके, ईमेल भेज के, हमें तो अपॉइंटमेंट अभी तक मिली नहीं है. सो वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू गेट अ पॉइंट अक्रॉस.
Right. So I don't think anything needs to be said at the end of this fabulous evening, except a great hand for the panel. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to each of the distinguished panelists. We hope to convene again after a month. And the last thing I'll say is, in my defense, Kiran, we put is at the beginning of that sentence. So it was a question mark. Is illegal MSP the next big idea? We're not coming to a conclusion. So we didn't say it is. It is. I put is at the beginning of the sentence. So look forward to having all of you here again next month. Thank you so much.